Daniel Berman, his whole big thing is taxation is theft. He's an international speaker promoting the ideas that taxation is theft, that individual freedom is paramount to the government, and that we are not government property. He is founder of the Taxation is Theft shop and host of Taxation is Theft podcast. Steph, is that a podcast you listen to, the Taxation is Theft podcast?
I don't, but I should because I agree.
Yeah, I know you agree.
I don't want to fucking give up my money for taxes.
Dan was born in Los Angeles, California, and worked successfully as a video producer. Well, we could have used him here tonight to help out with some of the video production that we've been
Depends on
with.
what kind of video he was producing.
Well, if he's from L.A., California, and a video producer. Now, since it doesn't list any film credits, I'm guessing porn.
If his credits are located in the valley somewhere, then you know for sure.
Yeah, because anybody that works in film, they always, he's worked on films such as
San Fernando.
He's worked on, the Color Purple and all this other kind of shit. But if they don't list any names of the films that they've worked in and they're from Los Angeles, California, it's porn. Guaranteed it's porn. Let's see. He's an editor for commercial and nonprofit organizations and celebrities. He is also a software engineer who has worked with multi-million-dollar international startups and Fortune 500 companies. In his career, he has never found a problem too big to solve or a hat that's too big to wear, recognizing that the best solution is often the simplest. The New York Times. Now, Steph, have you ever had the New York Times say something about you?
Never.
We've had the L.A. Times, and that wasn't good.
No comment.
Yeah. New York Times says that Dan Behrman leads the Taxation is Theft movement and has a website that he runs from Cancun, Mexico. He calls for eliminating the Internal Revenue Service, ending the Federal Reserve, and legalizing pineapple pizza.
Legalize it. Pineapple pizza?
You got to legalize it.
Okay, there's where you lose me at.
Yeah, you lost me at pineapple on pizza.
Pineapples do not belong on pizza.
No, they do not.
Ever.
Fortune Magazine. Did Fortune Magazine ever say anything about you, Steph?
I think they did, actually. I don't believe it was very good either.
We had Fortune and Forbes say some shit about us, and it was not too good.
I was going to say, I don't think either one of those were good.
But
Hell, even Daily Mail.
I'm an LOL bully. Allegedly.
Fortune Magazine says his platform, when they're talking about his platform, they said that his platform is any person should be free to live their life however they prefer, so as long as they don't hurt others and don't take their stuff. Among other issues, Berman's campaign calls for ending the Fed, free health care, and education. So welcome on the show, Mr. Daniel Behrman. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so where are you at tonight?
I am actually out of my studio in a very hot apartment right now. It's a long story. I'm on my way to Belize. I'm taking my wife there for her birthday. So this is a stop, and it is hot as hell, which is why I'm not wearing my full suit. But even my water's sweating. I brought in a nice cold water about 10 minutes ago, and it's already room temperature.
Now, I noticed on your Facebook profile, and it says here that your offices are located in Cancun, Mexico. Now, is that just to keep the feds off your back because you're talking about not getting them funded, or are you really in Mexico?
I'm really in Mexico. My wife grew up in Cancun, so that was one of the reasons we picked here. But honestly, I just love to travel. I see the world without borders. I look at a map and I see imaginary lines, and I'm like, what are those for? So I like traveling all around the world. I've really been able to, just experience so many different cultures and see how different people live. And it's really been eye-opening, and I just love to keep doing that. I don't see any point in staying in one little spot. It's like a prison to me. Okay, no offense to anybody who does that. But
now, out of all the places that you've been outside of the United States, where's your favorite?
Oh, man. I can't say. I mean, look, if I had a favorite, I'd stop moving around and I'd just stay there. I love just moving around. I want to keep moving. Every couple of years, I want to just throw a dart and a map and say, okay, let's go live there for a couple of years.
Now, you're not running for emperor or king or president of Cancun. You're running for president of the United States. So why do you care if you're a man of mystery, an international man that can go anywhere he wants and does go anywhere that he wants? Why are you so interested in becoming president of the United States of America?
Because since I was born in the United States of America, no matter where I travel on this planet, or even if I travel to Mars, the United States government wants to tax me wherever I go.
That's true.
From Mars.
Yeah, I'm sure they would get their dollars on
they'll find a way.
They will find a way. I guarantee it.
Okay, so before we get to the taxation thing, you grew up in Los Angeles. Is that correct?
That's right.
And how was life in L.A. for you?
Man, it had ups and downs. I I kind of grew to hate it. I think a lot of people do that, and growing up in the city that they were born in. But it's a cool place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there.
Out of my curiosity, what part of LA?
So I grew up near LAX. And as you mentioned, I did live in the San Fernando Valley for a while. I moved around a lot. Even when I was stuck in Los Angeles, every couple of years I moved somewhere else. I was in Santa Monica, Culver City, Venice. I just lived all over the place. I can't sit still.
Okay,
Nice.
now did you attend college anywhere? Did you take any college at all, or are you a self-made man? What's going on?
So I kind of like to call myself a high school dropout. I graduated, but I just stopped paying attention, and I have no idea how I made it through. So, but I did go to community college. I actually started there early, and once I started teaching one of the classes, I was kind of like, this isn't for me. I'm not learning anything here. So I'm kind of self-educated. I learned some interesting stuff in college, but most of the stuff that I use in my career now, I'm all self-taught. So. I got you. That's why I'm such a big advocate for things like homeschooling and self-education and that sort of thing, because there are really so many more opportunities that you can see when you do that. And life is really just much more enjoyable than when you follow the path of what the government propaganda tells you. Get your 12-year high school diploma, go to college, blah, 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 do all that stuff. I don't like living in the machine, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm all about that.
All about, yeah. Not
Sounds
living in the
good to
machine.
me.
Okay, so you here you are. You're living in L.A. and I'm trying to establish who Daniel Behrman is. And so you're growing up in L.A.
All right.
You're easily bored, which when I'm talking about easily bored as far as your education, which happens to a lot of people that are rather intelligent. They get bored real quick trying to sit in the classroom, and they just want to get out there and actually experience it in real life. So you're moving around, you're doing that, and then you got involved in film editing.
Right.
For porn.
Well, we all
Ask it.
we all made bets beforehand, and I have $5 on that you're editing porn stuff.
Porn.
I
can't tell you that I have, but I can tell you that I haven't.
Okay. All right. Nailed it. Okay.
Plead the fifth.
So eventually, someplace or down the lines, what is your political background? Have you ever held any office before? Is this your first attempt? What's going on as far as your political background?
So, I ran for the Texas House of politicians who like to make rules that other people should live by. I ran against a single Democrat, and I got 23% in that race. It was a small local race. There was a population of about 100,000 people in the district. I ended up with 5,000 votes, which was 23%, which tells you about 1/5 of the district actually got out and voted. That's pretty typical in a lot of places, actually, but. I think I did a really great job there, and it was, I was still kind of learning about what politics is about at that point. I was running as a libertarian, but I've gone through this cycle. I grew up in LA, and I'm surrounded by Democrats, and I have all the Democrat propaganda of guns are bad, drugs are bad. Well, they're kind of on the fence on that one, but taxes are good. All this other stuff. Huge government. Government should do everything, solve all our problems, solve homelessness, solve health issues, solve the environment. And then I went to Texas, and I was like, hey, guns are fun. And then I kind of became, fiscal conservative. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of like this Republican stuff. But then I realized, even though they both have good things that they're trying to sell to the voters, they're both really trying to rip everybody off. So the politicians in both of those parties are just liars and cheats. So I was like, okay, I don't want anything to do with this. So that's kind of when I stumbled onto the Libertarians. And, I've butted heads with them a few times, but I think that's where, they've got the most promising future, I think, in where this country should and can and will go.
Now, I want to hear this in your own words, because last time when we had the first time we had Kim Ruff on, and Kim Ruff is another comrade. Comrade should probably is not the word, but somebody else that's running for a presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. And I was talking to a lot of people just leading up to that interview, and I was asking them, what is a libertarian? And they thought that they were extreme leftist. I mean, if you're a libertarian, obviously you know what a libertarian is. But there's a lot of people out there that only know Republican and Democrat. And when they hear the word libertarian, they're not even sure exactly what that means. But in your words, what is the Libertarian Party?
So there's this one fundamental principle, which is they call it the non-aggression principle, which is you don't initiate force against somebody else, which basically boils down to you don't hurt people and you don't take their stuff. Fundamentally, that can be applied to everything that you think about. When it's taxes, taxation is theft. You're stealing from somebody. You might have the noblest of causes. You want to solve world hunger, something else. You're still stealing. Does that justify it? That's a philosophical debate we can have. Are you going to shoot somebody because they had a broken taillight? Well, that's violence. Like we can look at all these at a philosophical level and see that you're harming somebody trying to do whatever good you're trying to do. And that's kind of at its core. Now, I will say this, the Libertarian Party is diverse, and you cannot get two libertarians to agree on pretty much anything. So when we have our conventions and there's 1,000 libertarians in the room, we're all fighting over whether or not we should add abortion to the platform, whether or not taxation is theft, believe it or not. There are all kinds of things, and I think that contributes to part of this issue where some people think we're crazy left, some people think we're crazy right. And what I've really been trying to do is figure out, okay, we have people on the left and people on the right who haven't heard this message before. What I want to do is, because I have so many people come up to me and say, oh, you don't want to pay taxes. You want to see all the poor people starve in the streets, and you want to see children go without health care and all these other things. That's absolutely not true. We just want to find a different way to provide that without paying taxes, which actually means you can provide it for yourself with really low prices, but the Democrats are trying to drive the prices up. So my interest is kind of more into the messaging and how do we get this message out to a lot of other people, whereas libertarians are usually, they just like to sit around saying, yeah, legalize fully automatic guns. Yeah, legalize heroin. Yeah, no taxes. And that's kind of about it. And of course, you sound like a nut when that's all you're talking about. So I try to go a little bit beyond that.
Well, let's talk about Medicare or healthcare for a second.
Sure.
Because I believe that you do believe that we should get free healthcare, but how do you implement that in a libertarian fashion?
So here's the thing. We have to understand what the word free means. Free does not mean zero cost of acquisition. Free means you are free. You are liberated. You are able to make your own decisions and do whatever you want, as long as, of course, you don't hurt anybody or take their stuff. So what we think we have, like a lot of people are told we have a free market system when it comes to healthcare in the United States. The truth is we don't. It's very far from it. If we did have a free market system, what that would mean is the cost of our drugs, the cost of our doctors and care and everything else would plummet. And I have a lot of doctors and medical researchers who are on board with this plan. Basically, here's the thing. If you look at some of the medications we have in the United States, like insulin, it costs $100 for a vial of insulin in the United States. If you go to Colombia, where one of my friends who's a doctor was just there, and he bought the same vial for $25. The cost to actually produce it in either place is somewhere between $3 and $5. So why do they sell it for $100 here, and why do they sell it for $25 there? Well, there's only 3 companies that are allowed to sell it in the United States. We can't import it from another country because it's illegal. Who decided it's illegal? The government. Why did they decide it's illegal? Because the big pharma is basically lobbying for government, saying, hey, make sure people can't import these drugs because we want to be able to charge a higher price here that we know that Americans can afford, but Colombians couldn't. So really, we have no free market system. We have the illusion of a free market system. And by getting all of these government regulations and prohibitions out of the way, we're actually going to see the cost of healthcare decline so far that we'll be able to afford it without needing insurance, without needing government assistance and all these other programs, which means we don't have to pay taxes. So it's really a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the Republicans who don't want to pay. They don't like Obamacare. They don't like high taxes. And it's a win for the Democrats because you're able to get the healthcare that you want and need without having to steal from anybody else and without having to go through all these government loopholes that basically prevent you from getting what you need.
Okay, so you lift the regulation. Okay, so now we have insulin that we're getting at, let's call it $25 a vial instead of $100. Okay, so that's great. Our prescriptions start coming in at a lower rate because we're not having the government regulate who can sell here, and it's more of an open free market the way that the country was initially set up. But how does that help us when we're talking about, so I understand that takes care of the prescription drug problem, and I can see that. But how does that help when somebody has a quadruple bypass because they've been eating McDonald's their whole life, and they rack up $150,000 or whatever it is in hospital stay, ER, all that kind of stuff. Now, for a lot of people in this country, you put a $150,000 bill on them for medical, and there's no way that they'd be able to pay that. So how do you bring that down to something that's more realistic for your everyday people? Especially, I'm talking about middle class and, lower middle class and the poor.
So there are a few things to look at. One, that's what insurance is for. We have this concept right now that we're going to pay insurance, but insurance should cover pre-existing conditions and all these other things, when really, no, you should, like it doesn't make sense. Like, oh, there's an insurance company, I'm going to give them $1,000 a month and they're going to give me $5,000 a month in care, and it's going to be like that for the rest of time. That doesn't make any sense. Insurance is literally gambling. So what insurance is there for, and we'll take care of we'll take care of getting the $5,000 part by saying, that's the previous problem of the cost of insurance. It'll cost less than that to get your medications. But insurance is there for catastrophic things that just come up out of nowhere, right? You have a heart attack. That's what you can be paying insurance for. And if insurance only has to pay for that sort of thing, your cost is going to be much lower. Now, here's the other interesting thing. I had a friend who went in for a procedure that was, it was something like, it was a couple $1,000s. And basically he said, well, I don't have insurance. And they said, okay, well, it's a couple $100s. So what happens is the hospitals, what they actually do is they have to inflate their prices because they have all these special deals with a lot of insurance companies that say, we'll give you a 70% discount because the insurance company feels good about that. So what they do is they just jack their prices way up so that they can give the discount to the insurance company and they feel good about it. So when you get the bill and it says 150 grand and you tell them, hey, we're going to pay cash, they might drop it to like 10 or 15 grand, right? Now, here's another interesting thing. The doctors need to get paid a lot, and there's also a lot of overhead with administrators and regulations and lawyers and administration. There's so much cost in that can go away if you get rid of the regulation. And again, we have to understand that doesn't mean we're going to be less safe, because that's not what regulation is about. Regulation isn't making sure you check, cross the T's and dot your I's. It's about making sure that you do things in a way that are making a lot more money for certain special interests. That's what the regulations really do. Now, what's interesting is that they actually limit the number of doctors we have. So if you understand the basic economics of supply and demand, if there are twice as many doctors, they're going to lower their prices because, hey, they're going to be fighting for your business. Hey, no, let me do your triple bypass. No, let me do your triple bypass, right? But when we live in a world where, no, you have to wait for 6 months to get your triple bypass and like the waiting list is forever long, they're able to charge whatever they want because they know you're going to pay it because, hey, someone's going to pay. If you can't pay it, someone else will take your slot and they'll pay it. The government, through their regulations, actually limits the number of doctors that we have. They limit the number of residencies that we have. There are fully qualified doctors coming to this country from India, from the Philippines, from all over the world, and they're not able to practice because they have to go through years and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of training and re-education just to conform to the United States system in order to perform these. So that's why we see a lot of medical tourism where people are actually going outside of the country to get these things done for a fraction of the price, and they're actually getting, it's the same quality of care. It's not like, oh, well, I don't know, are they going to give me like a fake heart that's not going to work in, a couple months? It's not that. It's the same quality of care,
which is actually, and that's actually illegal. If you have insurance in the U.S., you're not supposed to go outside the U.S. to seek medical help. It's actually It's actually agast the law.
It is. I didn't know that.
I believe it.
Yeah, they regulate everything.
Because and Rogan talked about that because he had some like procedures into his knee. He had like bloodletting, and he went to like Germany to do it, but he had to do it kind of secretly because you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed, unless it's like emergency, like they can't. Everywhere. Yeah.
You know the crazy thing about that? Why should the government be able to determine you as a person where you can and cannot go to help yourself if you're having a serious health problem?
Well, and that's why a lot of people try to go overseas for like cancer treatment, because a lot of other countries do like holistic medicine versus like chemo and stuff like that.
Yeah, but my thing is should the government have that kind of power over us where they could say, okay, absolutely, you know what, you have insurance and yeah, you can go to another country because they're doing all this new stuff that we can't do here, or no, you cannot go because you're paying for insurance here and that's against our law. Like,
yeah, well, I see, I'm not too familiar with that. I don't know if it's an actual government regulation or it's an insurance company regulation. Like if you're uncovered by our insurance,
against the law is against the law.
Well, but
it's not a hospital law. It's not an insurance law.
An insurance company can have things in their policy that go above and beyond the laws of our land. And, just like you buy an electronic from Best Buy and you can't open up the back of it or you void the warranty. That's not a federal law. That's just the law of that manufacturer that we're not going to fix it if you void and open up the back of your TV. And so I don't know specifically about the situation, but it could be very similar to that, where the insurance says that they're going to drop their policy on you if you're going to Mexico to get your teeth fixed or your whatever, chemotherapy, whatever you're doing. I don't know the specifics on
breaking
that.
the law then.
But anyways,
White
yes.
Claw breaking the law.
Okay, so and you're right. There's some things about the Libertarian Party that swing a little to the left, and there's things that swing far to the right. But what are some fundamental differences between the Libertarian Party and let's just first line up against the Republicans? What's something that a Republican platform that they believe that the Libertarians absolutely say no, that's not what we believe?
So I think the Republicans are a little bit more for foreign intervention and maybe subsidizing other nations through foreign aid. They say they're fiscally conservative and they like cutting taxes, and sometimes they do cut taxes, but they don't cut the spending. And ultimately, the spending is the tax, because as we're seeing right now with Trump and his record deficits, he cut the taxes, but either he's going to have to raise them back up to make up that difference, or the next Democrat's going to come in and say, oh my God, we have to raise taxes. And of course, Democrats are okay with raising taxes. Bernie wants 90%. So I think we're a little bit more knowledgeable of the entire system as a whole. We look at the Federal Reserve as a bad thing. It manipulates money markets. The way it manipulates currencies and international affairs it's really amazing what they can do with that, and the Republicans seem to be okay with that. They're very closed border. We're very open border. So I think those are a lot of the things. We complain about some of the same things together. So it's really about finding that middle ground, because the reality is what I like to do on this campaign is figure out, okay, Republican, I want to get you everything that you want, all the pros, like, lower taxes and, safety and security and all these things that you want. Terrorism is the number one thing that Republicans are worried about. I want to make you feel safe, and I want to save all your money from the government, and I'm going to get you that. Don't worry about what I'll work that out with the Democrats, because of course the Democrats hate that because they want to take all their money to pay for their programs. I'll take care of the Democrats, but I have a way that's going to make both sides happy. This is the side you worry about. And they're very accepting of that. So that's kind of the thing. We got to find the common ground with them.
Yeah. Okay, taxation. Now, we just had, 5 million people said they're willing to storm Area 51, which was, nuts. But, if people really want to make a change, why don't we have half the country just stop paying taxes altogether? But
right.
The premise of taxation is theft. What are you basing that on?
It's by definition, it's theft. By the way it's collected, it's theft. So picture it this way. The smallest tax, whatever it may be, if you don't pay it, they will take it from you forcefully. They'll either go to your bank account, they'll seize your assets, whatever, they'll take it. If you try to hide that money overseas, if you try to hide the assets, they will charge you with evasion, they'll escalate it, and they'll say, we're taking you to jail. If you try to resist that, they're going to hurt you. If you really try to resist it, they might kill you. This is what tax is. There is no law so small that they're not willing to kill you over it, and that includes the laws that levy taxes. So philosophically, fundamentally, and by definition, it is absolutely theft. There's no way you can get around that.
But what would happen in this country if everybody stopped paying taxes tomorrow?
The infrastructure.
Infrastructure. Mm-hmm. I don't know the percentage of people that are employed by the government, but I'm assuming it's probably pretty high. But what would happen if everybody stopped paying taxes?
Well, we'd see a lot of interesting change, but it's not change that we need to be worried about. I mean, there was a huge industry on typewriter. I was talking about typewriter repair earlier today. That was a huge industry. People used to sell typewriters. There used to be a repair shop for typewriters where I grew up. What happened to all those people? Like, are they like so concerned about their jobs that, oh my God, what are we going to do? Did they all die because they couldn't repair typewriters anymore because nobody uses them? No, they found other things to do. And that's the reality. I mean, we're looking at a challenge of automation, how automation is going to replace a lot of jobs in the future. We're looking at how we're outsourcing a lot of these to other countries. It's just a change. It's not something that we need to be worried about. Now, one of the problems we do need to worry about is, and I've seen this around the world, where people are able to live without jobs. It's not always a glamorous life, but that's because they kind of never had a job in their life, right? So they live very simple lives. If you've had a job and you saved up money, then you have a better life and you can hold on to that and continue to keep that quality of life. But here's what government does. Government comes along and says, oh, you have a house? We're going to tax it. So even if your house is paid off, you've been working your whole life, you're ready to retire, you have to pay taxes on that for the rest of your life. And if you want to inherit that to your children, well, your children are going to have to continue to pay to pay that property tax. So through all of these taxes, what they're essentially doing is they're forcing you to go out and get a job just to keep what you already have. And if you look at it fundamentally,
True.
that's kind of a system of slavery, because you're forcing people to work when people are like, hey, I can stop working and I can just live at home and maybe some people are into like growing their own food and trading with their neighbors, but that's illegal now. So we've gone from a system where you used to be able to live freely on your own to a system where we're all completely dependent on this system. And we need to take a serious look at that and how can we move past that?
It's interesting that you say that. I remember reading an article before about an older gentleman. He was in the South somewhere, maybe Tennessee or Georgia or something, and he had completely separated his home from the city systems. And the city sued him twice, and then eventually sent him to jail because he was not attached to any of the city services.
Totally off the grid.
No power, I think it was the water. He was collecting rainwater, and the city had deemed that it was illegal and it was against the law for him to do that and not be attached to the city services.
And I've heard other places where cities and towns put it into effect that you have to have at least one public utility.
At least one, and I think that's most cities nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, which is because we think of the old idea of the Old West, where you stood on your land, you raised your own cattle and your own farm and all that other kind of stuff.
Well, that was before
that's it. What Dan's saying right there is that's exactly true. That is an impossibility now.
Yeah. We live in a country now where of course you have like problems like eminent domain, where if they're going to build a freeway through your house, you're either going to leave forcefully or they're going to pay you off and you're going to take the money and go.
Well, and that brings up a good point, Dan. Like something like, okay, let's talk about this no taxation type of civilization, and let's say that we did want to build a new highway or something like that. How does that kind of infrastructure in the future without taxes? How does that get paid for?
Well, the first thing you have to ask is who wants to build that highway, and once you figure that question out, you'll have your answer. If it's Amazon, because they have all these trucks that are driving back and forth all over the country to deliver their packages, and they need a new road somewhere, they'll build it because they can't get to those customers to make that money if they don't have a road there. If we look at every road that's in the entire country, except for the roads to nowhere, which were built by government, of course, they were all built for some private purpose. Somebody wanted that road built. And in a lot of cases, a private company will go petition the government and say, hey, I need a road here. Can you build it? And they'll say, well, yeah, let me just reach into the taxpayers' pockets and I'll build it for you. And it might be a developer who's like, yeah, I want to build tract housing over here. I want to build 1,000 houses. I want to build a mall, or I want to build an airport or an amusement park, but I need a road to it. They go to the government and say, yeah, build a road for me.
Yeah,
and the government builds the road. Like, how are you going to have an airport with no road to it? Build the road yourself. How are you going to build a Walmart or a mall or any of these things? Build your own road.
And then for residential, the people end up paying it because they pay like HOA or Melrose tax for the infrastructure.
Maintain it, yes. But who would even buy that house in the first place if it didn't have a road to it? And that's how the utilities are actually put there. A developer will go to a utility company and say, hey, we're making this new development. We need you to put down the water pipes. We need you to put down the phone poles. We need you to put in internet even now, because we got to make sure these houses are all wired for internet, because nobody's going to buy a house that doesn't have these things.
All right now today, and I'm sure you're way more caught up on this than I am, because I'm not really a political guy at all, but how much are we paying in taxes today?
Close to about 50% of our income. If you take all of the money that's collected by the federal, state, and local governments, and you divide that by the 320 million people in this country, it's about half of what the average income is, which isn't even really fair to say, because now you're dividing it among also the children who aren't paying taxes. So it's more than 50%. That includes all the taxes, fines, fees, levies, penalties, all this other stuff.
You're talking sales tax, gas tax, all the taxes.
Everything. Now, here's what's interesting about gas tax, which kind of blows people's minds a lot of the time. every single day, $180 million in gas tax. That's how much we pay across the country.
Wow.
And if you add in licenses and registrations and traffic tickets, it goes up to $250 million per day.
Damn. That's a big number.
That's a lot of money, right?
Well, that's the question is what, it begs the question is, where is all that money going?
It's not all going to roads, which is where it's supposed to go. But you know how politicians are. Well, we have extra money here. Instead of lowering the tax, let's just, I got this project over here. Let's do something else with it.
You know, the thing that throws me too, and it really murders us all. Think about, like, for example, 91 freeway. Mm-hmm. Think 10 years ago, before there was fast track, you got in the HOV lane and you went from place to place all through Orange County, no problem at all. You just paid your regular road tax. Then they take away the HOV lane, decided, what we're going to do? We're going to put in a fast track. We're going to tax you guys extra money to pay for this fast track, and then when it's finished, we're going to charge you to use it. So we paid for the roads, and now we're paying to use the roads that we paid for.
Yeah, and right here locally in Southern California, he's talking about a specific freeway that goes from the Inland Empire into Orange County.
Yeah, Southern California.
And how much do those fees get up to? Don't they get up to like $21, $22?
$25 sometimes.
$25 toll.
Yeah, $25.
One way.
Have you ever been on there's like going to San Diego? I think there's like a private toll road. Have you ever been on that one?
That's the same thing. That's the fast track.
You're talking about the one that cuts from the main one.
The 241 or something like that.
Yeah.
When it goes down to 8, a portion of it is down to 15 actually. When you cross like Escondido.
Oh, that section where they run it one direction during the day, one direction. Anyways, these toll roads. And I'm sure in a tax-free society, it would go to the direction of more roads like that being privately built. And sure, in the scenario that you said, Amazon needs to build a freeway from point A to point B, and they're going to recoup their money back by making it into a toll road for the normal public that uses it. But that could get costly. That could get really costly.
Sure, but if you consider that $250 million a day that we're paying. Is supposed to go to roads, and they're not even using all of that for the roads. And well, of course, they're not maintaining the roads. And then when they do maintain the roads, they way overpay for it with no bid contracts that, some politician's cousin owns the road company. Right. If you factor that all in, the cost of maintaining a road is actually a lot lower. And if you look at the price of what you're going to spend on toll roads, it's actually less than you're paying for the gas tax. So if you get rid of the gas tax, your gas is going to be cheaper, and you're going to pay for the tolls as much as you actually drive on them, but you're ultimately going to save money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me just ask you this general question. Okay. And I'm sure you're just going to say it's horrible, but what is your general feeling about the government that we have in place today?
Oh, it's horrible.
See, nailed it.
But yeah, I mean, every aspect of it that we look at, sometimes they do things with the best of intentions, but there is no system of checks and balances. We think like, it's separate branches, so checks and balances, but there isn't. Look at the DMV, right? You walk into the DMV, you have a terrible experience. The wait time is low. The people are rude to you. And then what do? Who do you call and complain to? Nobody. But now if you walked into the Apple store and one of the customer service agents was rude to you, and they have a really great way of letting you wander around and make sure they get your name when you walk in, and somebody was rude to you there, what do? You tell the manager, and what are they going to do? They're going to fire somebody. But that doesn't happen at the DMV. Why? Because ultimately they don't care about losing customers, because ultimately you can't lose a customer. They have you like chained in shackles from ever leaving.
The thing about the DMV is one of the only systems in California that's set up that's not funded by the government. They're self-funded. So all your registration fees and stuff like that, they kick a portion back to the government, of course. But the monies that you spend and then use for all your registration and shit like that DMV. Goes to the DMV system itself.
Right, but what is? Why are they? That's like the cartel kidnaps people and then they extort people for money and say, oh yeah, $100,000 if you want them back, and they fund themselves, so it's okay. They're not working on taxpayer money, but they're robbing people, which is exactly what the DMV is doing.
Agreed.
Because it's like, wait, I bought the car and you're going to charge me a tax every year just to have this car that I bought. And it turns out this is all smoke and mirrors, by the way. I've been driving without registering cars and without a driver's license for the past 10 years all over the United States, mostly in Texas. But it's all smoke and mirrors, and you really don't even need this stuff because it's a contractual law that they try to get you into a contract to, that's how they extort you. When you get stopped for a traffic ticket or a broken taillight, it's not an actual crime. When's the last time you went to court to fight a traffic ticket and they said, here's your public defense attorney, here's your jury trial, go get prepared? That doesn't happen because it's not an actual crime, and those are constitutionally guaranteed rights for any crime, no matter how small.
Wait a
Here
minute.
they'll tell you it's a privilege and not a right.
Wait. So you're driving around without license and registration.
Propaganda.
And so you just take it, you just risk it, and if you ever get stopped, and they're not going to arrest you over it, they're just going to write you a ticket to give you a court date, and you're going to show up, and you're going to pay a fine, and you're probably making out saving a lot of money over the rest of us schmucks that are paying for the registration and the. But I mean,
Except here they'll take your
If
car
I
away.
showed up and if I paid the fines, yeah, but I don't.
if I
that's the
showed
other
up and
thing,
paid
yeah,
the
but
fines,
some point
that's why he's living down in Cancun, Mexico.
No, that's actually, I'm here for the weather. Like, I go back to the United States all the time, and I'm happy to drive. And I have lots of tickets, and I've been stopped time and time again. And I've actually sent. So there's a law. There's one of very few laws that are actually in our favor called the Fair Debt Collections and Practices Act law, which basically means a creditor or somebody who thinks that you owe them money is not allowed to harass you. And I've used this law with credit card companies. I've helped my friends get out of like lawsuits. My friend was getting sued by a credit card company for $5,000, and they dismissed the case because they had no proof of it. I use this same law on traffic tickets and parking tickets and police departments that have been calling me, hey, we gave you a ticket, you got to send us money. And I send them a letter, certified mail, saying, I'm not going to pay it. And if you continue to harass me, I'm going to sue you under this federal law. And then they just stop calling.
I need that hookup right there.
I need
Can
that.
we get that letterhead?
Can I get my $425 back from a ticket?
But here's the thing: we were talking about you can't go to another country because of, and of course we haven't confirmed exactly how it is. But let's say it's because of a term in the contract that you signed. That's exactly what they do with your driver's license. So once you have your driver's license, that's a contract, and if you get stopped with that driver's license and they give you a ticket and you sign that ticket, that's another contract. You are now contractually bound for all these things. And if you breach that contract, now they have legal cause to go after you to collect all this money. So the first, and I don't recommend this because you really have to know a lot just to live a free life, which really sucks. And that's one of the reasons I kind of got into this. We shouldn't have to be lawyers just to be free. But one of the reasons I don't recommend it is because it is difficult. And if you don't know the right things to say, you can really get caught up in that system and end up in jail, and a lot of bad things can happen.
So you get pulled. I mean, do you drive around a car when you are here? Do you drive around a car that has expired registration on it?
For a while, I had plates that were expired. After that, because I kept getting stopped for that.
Yeah.
I bought another car that just didn't. It had those dealer plates that they used to have in California, which was just like an ad,
the paper
not
ones.
an actual plate. And then I got stopped a couple times for that, and I was like, man. So I just put like some weird looking random printed barcode on the back of my license plate, so when cops saw it, they would just be like, oh, it must be from out of state, and they wouldn't harass me.
The funny thing behind that is
why get stopped if you don't have to?
they actually, now they're illegal, the printed plates from the dealership.
They're illegal now.
They're illegal.
Yeah,
the one that used to have like the
California was last
dealership
state
names
to go,
on.
I think.
Yeah, those are illegal. Now you have printed paper plates.
So they went from printed plates to
You
printed
know,
plates.
and here in California, if you're caught driving around a car that the registration is over how old? But anyways, they'll over if your car has expired registration over 6 months and you get pulled over, they have the right to impound your car right there. I'm not saying they have the right, but the laws are in place that have given them.
Well, here's an interesting question: what's the difference between expired registration and non-registration?
Nothing.
No, there is. It's called non-operative in California, and you pay a fee to not have your
That's
car
a little
be
bit different,
legal.
but yes, that's another category.
He's talking about a car that's never been registered.
Or unregistered, where you actually send a letter to the DMV and say, hey, I don't want this contract with you. I'm going to, you say you're exporting to a foreign jurisdiction, which basically means you're taking it out of the control of California's jurisdiction, and it is no longer under their registration.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
so
what they
if you
do,
were to get pulled over,
He's unregistered. No, you
they
heard what he
cancel
said.
your registration. No, it's called an export. This is my
Unregistering the car,
business.
unregistering the car to export it to another country.
Yeah, it's called an export. They actually take the title and they stamp a big red stamp on it that says export. And you were not able to register that car in California at all. Or actually, I think most states now, it's only like an out of the country thing. When it has that export stamp on there, I don't think you can go next door.
And if you get pulled over with that thing on with an export,
oh, they'll take it.
They'll take your car.
Yeah, because they put they put something on the registration through the DMV so that the cops can figure out
What
that.
if you just say, but I'm making my way to that other country?
I'm
driving there.
I also know
Taking
you
the
say,
ferry.
Jeff said the 6 month thing, the 6 month thing is bullshit too, because if your car is on the road, it's the cop's prerogative. It's up to him. It doesn't have anything to do with DMV or 6 months time.
They
or
can write
anything
you
like
a
that.
ticket if it's expired.
They can, depending on the situation, they can impound your car on the spot. Well, ticket, no ticket. They can impound it just for not having a current registration.
Yeah,
That is possible, and it does happen. Absolutely.
Man.
That might be one reason why I left California. But Texas is a little bit.
Let me ask you a
They
question.
haven't impounded my car, except for one time when I didn't have insurance on me. But
so you do have insurance. You do believe in insurance.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing: insurance is good in case you get into an accident. Like what I do have a problem with is that, I don't like that the government mandates it, but I do think it's a great thing. I wear my seatbelt. I don't like that there's a seatbelt law, but I wear it because of safety. I use my headlights at night.
That's another thing here.
All right,
no
all right.
insurance, they cancel your registration.
Yeah. Well, I mean, California, we got everything. I mean, we pay a lot here in the state of California.
Yeah, we do.
really do. We
So,
really do.
Let me ask you a question. I asked Kim this question. Do you think that the government is too broken to be fixed? Like, do you think we are? Do you think we are past the point of no return?
If I thought that, I would have moved to Mexico instead of trying to run for president and fix it.
No, but I don't mean from a libertarian perspective. Because that's a different mindset. I mean from a red and a blue. Like,
Right.
is it just too broken to have red and blue?
No,
now?
I think we're going through a phase right now, especially when we talk about red and blue. We're going through a phase where, a lot of people are waking up to the reality of what government is. And so they give us a lot of these things to fight over, to keep us distracted from the real issues that they don't want us to talk about. We see this with a lot of politicians. I think that's one of the reasons Trump may or may not have been hated. I think he's still kind of part of that system, even though a lot of people say he's not, or at least he plays well with those people. But we are very divided in that way. And I think what we need to do, and going back to that's kind of the whole purpose of my platform, is to figure out how do we get people together to understand we can all get what we want if we just stop trying to steal from each other. And I think that's, it's something, some people say it's part of the human experience. We have to go through this. We have to live. We have to learn. We have to grow culturally to kind of understand this. And it's not something government can fix, but it's something where, if as thought leaders, we can kind of put this message out there and people start to hear it and understand it. Like, yeah, what are we fighting over? This is really pretty stupid. We could be doing so many more things that are productive, like enjoying life and being happy. Why are we fighting over stupid things that, most of it, we don't even know if it's true or not, because it's coming from, through the grapevine of.
Uh-oh. We lost the call.
Oh, no.
I think that's.
Oh, he's back.
There it is.
That was fast.
I figure the internet in Cancun's maybe not that strong.
Yeah, that Cancun internet.
Yeah.
The federales just showed up his house, and he has to pay $10 to continue the call. So okay, well he's back. Okay, so we've got this radical trend right now of the left, or a faction of the left going extremely left, the Bernie Sanders, etc., going to this level of socialism. And they're flat out branding it as socialism. But explain to the kids that are listening, that have a beard fetish, that watch this show. Explain to them why socialism is bad for America. I want to hear it from your words.
So I think here's the thing. Socialism has a very great premise, which is that we're all going to have better lives and we're all going to stop getting ripped off by capitalism or by big corporations or whoever's ripping us off. That's the promise. And it sounds like a great promise to somebody who they're young, they haven't experienced politics yet. They're very new to it. It sounds like a great thing, right? It's like, Bernie Sanders offering tuition-free college or, free healthcare for all these things. Like, they sound great. Who wouldn't want that? Seriously.
Of course.
A lot of people don't want it because they understand, like, yeah, that's just the bait on the hook. We know what it's going to reel us into. We know everything else that's behind it. And so therefore we know it's a bad idea. So I think what's really important for, young people to see that are, starting to think this message is that look, it's not big businesses and corporations that put you into this place where life is so difficult. Or if they did, they didn't do it alone. They did it with the power of government. They did it with the power of a gun behind them. They did it through, we all have to, like I said earlier, we all have to get jobs because government created artificial scarcity by taking from us. They create artificial scarcity to the point where, oh my God, we can't survive. We need to go get jobs and we need to get other people to give us stuff because we can't survive on our own. But we've been surviving on our own as a species for tens of thousands of years, and so many other species are able to do that. Why can't we? And so many people around the world are actually allowed to do it and are able to do it. And of course, a lot of us look at them and say, oh yeah, but they're in poverty, which isn't really true. A lot of people are actually enjoying their lives. Now, there are people in poverty who don't have a lot and who don't have jobs and who aren't into that system. But you have to understand the difference between those and the people who just live that way and not in poverty. But I think that's the really important thing. So for people who they're struggling, they don't know what to do with their lives. They don't want to go to college. They can't afford it. They don't want to get a job and that job doesn't pay for anything. Oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? We really need to understand okay, these are reasonable concerns and you're not a bad person for thinking, socialism is a great idea, but you do need to be educated about what it actually is and that there is a better way.
Yeah, I'm pretty lazy. That sounds good to me. No school, no work. You know what I mean? I'm a big fan of the barter system. If I could, I'd just move to Hawaii and live off the land, grow my own shit.
Oh, we were literally just talking about that
and just barter
yesterday.
back and forth.
Yeah, I don't, government taxes, money, what's all that shit? I just grow my own food and fucking live my life. It'd be perfect.
Yeah.
I strive for that when I retire.
But it's so true. In the mentality today is we want to tax another 2% to save starving puppies, and you say, well, no, I don't want to pay for starving puppies, and then you have all these leftist liberals say, well, what, you hate starving puppies? What kind of asshole hates starving puppies? But the thing they don't realize is just because it's something that's good in concept doesn't mean it's good for our economy, and that's what we should be doing. I don't know. It's such a slippery slope, especially when you're talking to the younger generation,
And here's what's really interesting. You talk about starving puppies. There are actually nonprofit charities that are out there helping dogs. Even in Mexico, Brazil, all over the place. I've seen some people have hundreds of dogs and a couple acres of land, and they just feed these stray dogs and they give them a place to live. There are places that do that in the United States. But what happens is you have churches who say, okay, I want to let homeless people sleep in the churches at night. And the government comes along and says, well, we're going to give you a $10,000 fine because you're not zoned for a hotel. You have people who are giving out food to the homeless and the government comes along and pours bleach all over it. You have homeless people who are sleeping in tents on the side of the road or under the overpasses, and the government in the middle of winter in Colorado, and the police are coming by with knives to slash their tents up. And you have to ask, is that really a government that really cares about the people?
No.
Or are they going to take your money and do something else with it?
No, because if the government was there for the people, I mean, they would let the church, and I've been involved in situations like that where churches are trying to feed the homeless and they get shut down by the local government because they don't have the permits or the food handler cards or whatever. Whatever.
Even
they
beyond
want to have an excuse to raise taxes.
If they didn't tax us so much and people were actually, God forbid, able to take care of themselves, then maybe we wouldn't have so many homeless people in the first place.
And look at how people get homeless. I mean, there are many different reasons, but some people get homeless because they lose their home because they couldn't pay the property tax. Some people lose their homes because the bank wasn't making any money, which that's a whole government-backed system. A lot of people hate banks for how they take over property, but that whole system is a system of fraud where they're inflating the currency and inflating the market. Just like they did in 2008, except the government usually keeps it under a little bit of control, so it's not this widespread epidemic, but it's the same thing that's always going on. And that's all through government policy that basically says, yeah, fraud is going to be legal now. So it's, every aspect you look at, get government out and your life will be better. And it's kind of difficult to see if you don't understand the complexity of the system. But it's like, if you look at anything and you don't understand how it works, it's magic. That's that's what they call it. Like, you've seen the guy with the two rings and he connects it. Oh my God, magic. How did he do that? But then you learn, oh, well, the rings aren't actually rings. They're actually just circles with an opening. Oh, that makes total sense now. Once you understand how it works, it's not magic anymore. And then you're like, oh, we're getting scammed here.
But now here's the $6 million question. Can you get enough people to buy into that where you get them away from the red or the blue, where they go, you get them to unite on this front where they say, okay, you know what, it's time to get rid of that system and come up with a brand new system.
It'll never happen.
Do you think we're at a place where we can get there?
Yeah, we're always at a place where we can get there. It's never too late to start and to get anywhere. I think, because this is truth, like you can only cover up truth for so long, right? Eventually truth comes out. And once you know the truth and a lie, people are going to say, well, that's a lie. I know the truth. So as more people learn the truth, then it's just going to continue to expand. They're going to share the truth with others. And that's kind of how it grows. It might take a very long time, but it is working. We are reaching more people all the time with this message. We're reaching hundreds of thousands of people every week. And we actually just started today with a digital billboard that's going up in Texas that just says taxation is theft with the Berman 2020 logo next to it. So people are going to see this. They're going to get the message. I wear this hat everywhere through airports. People stop me. They're Democrats or Republicans, and they resent it. But we have a conversation, and I educate them a little bit, and they're like, oh, actually, that does kind of make sense. Especially, Democrats who love taxes. How are we going to pay for all these great, wonderful things? And I say, well, do you like the bombs that they're paying for? And they're like, oh, God, no. Then they're like, oh, well, so what do we do about that? And I say, well, what if you had control over how the money is spent? And they're like, yeah, I like that. What if I had control? How do we do that? I say, well, just keep the money in your pocket and spend it yourself. And they're like, I don't know, but the seed is there, and they start thinking about it.
The problem is we have too many sheep and not enough wolves. Too many people who will just follow the law because it was placed there in front of them. Is so much easier for people to follow than it is for them to lead or try to make a difference. You know what I mean? Oh, okay, well, I'll just pay my taxes and I'll just go through my life,
But
living check by check.
Like myself, like I used to be afraid just to say like, hey, taxes are like not even theft, just like taxes are wrong, because I would be like, if I even try to challenge the IRS, they're going to throw me in a jail cell. And I had to kind of get over that. And now that I'm kind of leading this, wearing a giant yellow hat that says taxation is theft on it, people are actually like waking up and getting behind me on it and saying like, yeah, I've always wanted to say something, but like I've always been afraid of them. And so now they can get behind me and support me and not worry about the IRS coming after them. So I think that's a really important part of this, because you need a good, solid leader to take you into a battlefield. Especially, when there are a lot of people who are afraid of something as big and scary as the IRS, which actually is not that big and scary when you find out what it really is. But yeah, that's really what we need, and that's why I'm making such a big effort to do that.
Yeah.
If you can make the IRS not so scary, I'd appreciate that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. But who is that one anarchist that we had on the show? I think he was on the same show as Whitney, Wisconsin.
What the hell was his name?
Well-known anarchist, but he did a lot of time regarding not paying his taxes. Yeah.
If they can get Wesley Snipes, they'll get anybody.
Larkin
Rose.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks Wesley Snipes went to jail for not paying taxes, right? He was just a regular average Joe like us. He just had a really big paycheck, and he didn't pay the taxes on it, and he went to jail. If I got a copy of his indictment and I went through it, what happened is, and I don't like to call it a legitimate tax, but in more or less legal terms, it's legitimate, is a tax on corporations. And the IRS does legally have the power to tax corporations. And technically, they're legally not supposed to be taxing people like us who are working and getting a paycheck. But they do have a right to tax corporations, because that's a contract. Remember, we talked about contracts with the driver's license. You go to the government and you say, hey, I would like to be protected with the protections that a corporation offers. And they say, yes, as long as you pay these taxes. And that's the contract that you have now. Wesley Snipes had, I think, about 4 different corporations that he was receiving his money through. And on top of that, he was shifting the money around he was trying to get some sort of exemption that way. So they actually charged him with money laundering on top of the fact that they're able to legally tax a corporation. But there are a lot of people, go check out a guy named Joe Bannister, who actually used to be a special agent for the IRS. And he quit filing his taxes, I think, in 1990. And he's fought many battles with the IRS, and he's won every single one, because he knows the rules inside and out, and he understands that individuals earning a paycheck are not required to pay the income tax.
So hold on. So let me rewind this for a second. Because
in other words, let's go to school for 5 years, become a lawyer.
No, so what you're saying is you do believe in corporate taxes.
This is why this is a difficult. Okay, let me try to give you the shortest answer to that. I do believe the government has the right to tax a corporation, but I don't believe the government has the right to give a corporation the protections that it gives it.
And if they want those protections, then they have to pay their taxes.
Because if they want those protections, they should do it legally. So here's I'll try to make a short example. I know I give really long answers. Shut me up at any time. With a corporation, what's the main point of a corporation? You want to make sure that you're not sued individually for damage that you cause to people, right? So you get your iPhone, you agree to terms and conditions, and in that terms and conditions, assuming Apple is not a corporation, you would say, oh, you agree not to sue us above and beyond this amount, or you agree to only sue the company bank account and not any individual at Apple. Now Apple is protected the same way as a corporation, but they did it by contract. Now, here's the difference. Let's say you have a piece of land and your next door neighbor is, let's say he's drilling for oil and he spills oil onto your land and he has a corporation. So the corporation prevents you from suing your neighbor over totally messing up your land. That's not a legitimate thing because you have no contract with them. But that protection is only available there because the government gave him a corporation. If there was no corporation, like the Apple scenario, if he did that to you, you would be able to sue him for whatever damage he caused to you. And that's not a legitimate protection because basically what the government is doing is they're empowering your next door neighbor to totally pollute and destroy your land and face absolutely no repercussions.
I see what you're saying. I mean, but it was all over the headlines, and you probably read into this more than I did, but they're talking about Amazon, one of the monster companies in the United States, and they wrote off everything, and their tax bill was like relatively nothing.
Right. Yeah, and that's how most corporations operate. And if you think about it, like if anybody should be paying a tax, it should be Amazon. But the reality is we should have a way that, somebody can form a corporation without needing a government. So that they're protected from personal liability. And if somebody at the company does something illegal, they should be held personally responsible and not fine the company, fine the individual, because you think about laws and penalties, and these penalties are supposed to deter people from doing, bad things. But then when you say, okay, but here's a corporation, and if this corporation is, doing something really bad, then the company itself is going to pay for it. The employees are going to be fine, because it was all part of this thing everyone was in on. Then it's like you kind of got rid of the whole point of having laws in the first place.
Okay, let's say the election happens tomorrow and you get elected, and it's Daniel Berman, and he's the new president of the United States.
Mr. President, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'll play along with that. What do you do as president? What are some of the first things that you do?
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stop taxing people through the IRS. We're going to shut down the ATF and the DEA. We're going to let all 9 non-violent drug offenders out of prison, and we're going to expunge all their records because that's one of the big consequences of a drug charge is that you have to answer yes. Have you ever been arrested? You have
right.
Felonies on your record. Get rid of all that so people can actually get back out into society as a normal person without the stigma. And the Department of Education, which is, again, that's one of the ones people think, oh, you want to shut down all the schools. No, the Federal Department of Education takes money from the states, returns 10 cents on every dollar. It's sucking money out of the system, and it's forcing all schools to be the same. It's garbage. That's something we can get rid of, and the states can still operate their schools for now. So I think that's day one.
Well, I want to go back to the drug offender part just a little bit. What about the guys who are like selling like thousands and thousands of kilos of heroin every year, and he get popped, and he's doing 1,000 years? Like when you're talking about low level drug offenders, right? Are you talking about just the users? Or are you talking about the guys who were selling it? Or
if you got caught with 1 million pounds of it, what does that matter? I mean, if you didn't kill anybody trying to sell it, what does that really matter?
Yeah, but it's going to kill somebody. It's killing
eventually,
somebody.
Yeah,
killing somebody.
100,000 poppy plants is eventually going to make its way into 2 kilos of dope, which is going to. Where's the line?
I know, and
There's
you're saying like, where's the line? Where's the line? It's like, but it's like people are at their own discretion. If they want to buy drugs and take it till they overdose, that's on them, man.
Well, see, once again, that's a use versus a sale thing. So the people who are actually using the drugs, maybe you get caught in your system. Maybe you got an 8-ball in your pocket when you get pulled over from the cops for making an illegal U-turn or some shit like that. Like, Where is
Right.
the line drawn? Like,
People
there's so
are-
many questions when
like,
it comes to.
Let's say theoretically the idea of arresting the big drug dealers is so that individuals will not buy the drugs to harm themselves, right?
Or harm
Right.
other people.
Well, harming other people is a
when
different
they're-
story.
Yeah, but that's a different story. What they actually do when they're on it is a crime if they're harming other people. But if they're harming themselves, if they're just sitting in their living room doing whatever drugs they want, they're harming nobody but themselves. If that person doesn't have access to buying, let's say, heroin from some drug dealer who's selling it by the kilo, then what are they going to do? They're going to huff paint. They're going to do whatever they want. Like, there's stuff around. There's
True.
like taking the drug dealer out of it, which, by the way, there are much more bigger and dangerous drugs that the government is bringing in,
Of course. Big pharma.
and getting people hooked on legally. But that's the individual's choice. If they want to do something self-destructive, we can't come along and say, oh, you did something bad, we're going to punish you even worse. It's like, I experimented with a lot of drugs when I was younger. It was a phase. I grew out of it. I don't do them anymore, except for the one that's not really a drug. And it's, and that's it. Like, so if I would have been caught in possession of cocaine like 20 years ago, I don't know what kind of record I have, but that might have ruined my chances at getting a job or, other things. And that would prevent me from being who I am today, successful with the companies I've started, with the jobs I've had and everything else. So it's like, well, so you're saying like they could get over this, but instead you just want to throw them in a prison and destroy their lives. So I guess we're talking back. We ran off topic of the big dealer, but it's the same thing. They're not harming anybody who doesn't want to harm themselves.
Okay, so yeah, that's basically what it boils down to, is like the user, the guy who's not harming anyone else.
All right, so taxation is theft. Don't hurt anybody else. I got that. But one of the things about America is we have a pretty strong defense. And without taxes, without that type of income, let's talk about two different things: local policing and national defense. How do we pay for that?
So national defense, first, we have to cut a lot of it. We're all over the world. I think we have something like 1,000 military bases all over the world. We don't need those. We have military bases all around Iran, and then we're telling them that they're threatening us. That's insane. We need to bring all the troops home, shut down all these foreign military bases. Right now, our military spending is 3 times as much as China. That's absolutely insane. We don't need that much, and it shot up a lot right after 9/11. And Osama bin Laden is dead. So what are we still doing? It's insane. We're the truth. If you want to know the truth, we're trying to steal oil and land and resources from everywhere else in the world who won't sell it to us, or won't sell it to us as cheap as we want. And that's why we send military there, to protect the corporations that are extracting it. That's the real truth about it. So we're subsidizing corporations again with taxpayer money. So we need to stop that, bring the troops home, downsize the military, and use it only defensively. And right now, there aren't a whole lot of people who are really trying to attack us. Yes, there's a whole terrorist threat in the Middle East, but most of those guys are pissed off because we've been dropping bombs on them for the past, I don't know how many decades. So stop making more terrorists, stop dropping bombs on them, and hopefully a few generations from now, they won't be so pissed anymore.
I'm kind of a firm believer of the offensive aspect of it. And only because I'm a neighborhood dude, I grew up around the way. It was never really a question of if you felt threatened and somebody was in your space uncomfortably, then I'd rather attack first and deal with the complications later.
We're policing.
If somebody's yelling at you, I'm going to punch you in the face, and they're like all the way down at the end of the block. Are you going to run over to him and punch him in the face? Or are you just going to say, that guy's just talking shit. He can't even come to my face and say it.
Okay.
Which a lot of that,
that's kind of fair.
No debate there.
A lot of the jarring that goes back and forth between the country, it's just that. It's, who's got the bigger stick?
Only when they're in my face, though. So you're right about the person. Like, if they came to me and there was a problem, then...
Like, a lot of these bullshit disputes that we have between countries, if we opened up trade and started trading with people... Because here's the thing, right? I don't want to go to war with North Korea. I'm sure none of you do. But our leaders want to, or with Iran. And most of the people in North Korea, they don't want to go to war with us. Maybe some of them because they're believing the propaganda. But most people in China don't want to go to war with us. They want to trade. They want to sell us stuff and make money from it. And if we stop, putting all these taxes on trade, and we allow free trade, then the people are happier and the governments are smaller, and there are no leaders to say, hey, we're going to drop a bomb on somebody, because like nobody in that country wants their leaders to do that. So once we start to allow other countries to develop and engage in free trade with us, and all of their quality of lives improve, and there's nobody for like them to point a finger at and say, your lives suck because of the United States of America, which is exactly what we're doing here. Like the Republicans and the Democrats, your life sucks because of the other party. As if there's nobody to point the finger at because everybody's happy, then there's going to be a lot fewer reasons to even start a war, and not so many leaders who have an excuse to start one.
Problem is, wars make money.
Yeah. So, but if we stop giving them money to make money with, then that's part of it. And if we all kind of wake up to it and say, no, we don't want a war because we know it's all about money, then same thing.
Okay. All right. So I'm getting what you're laying down. So how do we help you to become president of the United? Now, are you going to wear that hat? If you were actually elected, would you wear that hat, the taxation and stuff? I mean, I'd be down for that. Looks like Mad Hatter at a rave.
Yeah, I don't know if I could play golf with it on. I hear that's part of the job requirement.
I think, but
there's actually a big debate going on whether or not anyone would vote for me with the hat on. And every time I do a poll, the hat actually wins. Although now they're telling me I got to grow out a beard, and now it's beard versus hat versus nothing at all, or beard and no hat, beard and hat. It's crazy.
Go full Abe Lincoln. Do it. Go full
Abe Lincoln, and we're down for that. But let me ask you that question right now. Like Donald Trump, just give me some of your thoughts about Donald Trump, our current president.
Here we go.
So, he's done some good things. He's done some bad things. I think anything that he's done that's good for anybody other than him is purely by coincidence. And I don't want to talk shit about him, because that's the best way to lose all of his support. And I don't know if that's admitting to pandering, but the reality is, like, if we stop looking at all the bad things he did and look at the good things he did, and then say, yeah, these are the things that he did wrong should be done differently, without just attacking him with all of the reasons that we could. That's kind of a more proactive approach, because if all we're doing is talking shit about him, we're no better than the Democrats, who are already doing a wonderful job of that. And of course, he's doing a wonderful job throwing it right back at him. But I'm really not that type of person. I don't like to start fights with people. And that's what's really interesting about the Libertarian. If you've watched any of our debates, you'll have 5 of us on stage, and we'll all be like, oh, I didn't know that. We're learning from each other while we're having a debate, and then we're all like, yeah, that's actually really great. You're good. Yeah, congratulations. We shake everybody's hand. Meanwhile, you look at the Republicans and the Democrats, and they're like, he wants this, and he's got a criminal history, and he's all this throwing shit that has absolutely nothing to do with the issues. I think that's the type of leadership that the country really needs, is somebody who's mature enough to not sit around and pick fights like they're in 5th grade.
So no more mudslinging.
Right.
Dude, that's
except
politics.
For
that's never going to go away.
All right, so
another Woodstock.
All right, so Dan, so what are some of your plugs? I believe it's Berman2020.com. That's your main website, and then you've got yes. Go ahead. What is your social media, et cetera, that you can plug away?
So, if you go to Berman2020.com, you'll see everything. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. You go there. It's there's an opt-in form if you want to join the team. If you want to volunteer, there's a donate button. You can donate. Which, if you want to help fund the billboard, if you want to help fund everything else we're doing, we're really doing a lot with online digital ads. We're reaching hundreds of thousands of people every week, and the more money we have, the more people we can reach. So if you like the message, go there and donate and help us get this message out to more people. And if you like pineapple pizza, go check out legalizepineapplepizza.org.
Negative.
I like it. So I'm good.
Awful.
Now let me because he just gave his closing statement, and I ushered in the closing statement pretty much. But then I want to rewind one more time. The hot debate that's going around everywhere right now is gun control. That's what's on everybody's lips. We've got President Trump leaning to more gun control. We've got everything going on. What do you think it would take to stop? And when I say what do you think it would take to stop like these mass shootings, these assholes going into Walmarts to garlic festivals, et cetera, and shooting up a bunch of people, as bad as it is, I don't think that's our number one concern in the United States. But it's so graphic, it's so in your face that it gets everybody's attention. But how do we stop that?
So first we need to like understand, I like to attack big problems before I go after the little problems, because we want to save more lives, not worry about a couple. Not to say that those lives are insignificant, because any life that's lost is obviously a tragedy, but
in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, in the grand scheme of things. Yeah.
That's the big thing. We're afraid, and they're selling fear. And of course, fear makes us want to give up our guns. But here's the thing. It doesn't make you any more safer. You are 20 times more likely to be killed by a police officer than in a mass shooting. And you are 2,000 times more likely to kill yourself. So these are the statistics that are out there. Now, here's the thing I like to tell Democrats who want to ban guns is, I get it. You're afraid because guns can be scary, especially if you, like me, grew up in a city that was very anti-gun and had a lot of anti-gun propaganda, and that was the belief that everybody had. But we are actually more safe when everybody does carry and is trained and gets experience. Look at Texas, who has much lower crime rates than Detroit and Chicago. And by the way, if you take Detroit and Chicago out of the equation, United States is like at the bottom of the list of gun violence. But if you put them back in, we're like number 5.
Detroit and Chicago.
Yeah.
And I know Chicago has extremely strict gun regulation. What about Detroit? I'm not too familiar with them.
Yes, it's pretty much the same. And Democrat California, Washington, D.C., all these cities, there's a few different cities. You can look up that statistic to verify it, but it's more than just those 2 cities. But you take out these really gun control violent cities, and we drop to the bottom of that list. So here's the thing. Like, I get it. Everybody wants to be safe, and that's not a bad thing to want to be safe. And that's kind of where we have that common ground. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But we have to understand that banning guns is actually going to make us less safe. And, if you do shoot guns and you know somebody who doesn't, invite them out to shoot, teach them how to use a gun, teach them how to handle it, let them see it, and don't force it on them, but teach them not to be afraid of it, and that it can be a weapon of protection and safety in the right hands.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we've been talking with Daniel Berman. It's Berman2020.com. That's on all of his all your social media is exactly the same. Berman2020, Twitter, Facebook, the whole 9 yards, right?
Yep.
And
it's
Daniel,
all on there. So.
And Daniel is running for the presidential candidate. Now, do you have a? I know the Libertarian the Libertarians do it a little bit different, where the vice president runs on his own and the presidential candidate runs on his own. And so, is there any like running mate that you have in your sights?
I not specifically for vice president, but I will say this: most of the candidates who are running against me, I would be happy if one of them took the VP spot, and I would already have a space for them in my cabinet. And there are some other people that I would pick, like Judge Napolitano, if I had an opportunity to fill the Supreme Court.
Yeah, no
Joe
kidding.
Bannister, who I talked about earlier with the IRS, I'd put him in charge of the IRS. Dr. Mary Ruwart, who's a doctor who knows, I'd put her in charge of the FDA. She knows the ins and outs of all of these laws and regulations that are preventing access. So I have a lot of people that I would like to invite. Some of them have said yes. Some of them are like, well, let's see if you win first. But that's the thing. Like, I really don't see my opponents for the primary nomination as competition. I see them as really great friends, and I'd like to see that if I get the nomination and if I win the election, that they would all come with me to help me figure out this big organization of government and what to do with it.
Yeah,
Sounds pretty good on the checks and balances end of it too.
Yeah, and don't you think that like the Libertarian Party as a whole, it all starts on the local government level, and getting libertarian candidates involved in the local government and working the way up from there, which I'm sure everybody's trying. I mean, it's a battle. Yeah. I mean, we've got a 2-party system in place, and it's hard to get some actual real logic in there. And I for one subscribe more so to the libertarian philosophy than any other political party. But it's one of those things where, as a voter, it's like it does make it tough. It does make it tough. When I'm saying it makes it tough as, last election we had Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And I wasn't a huge Donald Trump fan, but I definitely was not a Hillary Clinton fan. And it was a vote against Hillary voting for Donald Trump. You know what I mean? And this whole third party thing, it makes it. It seems like it makes it difficult, and it seems like this Libertarian Party You know, and you guys have been around. The Libertarian Party was established what, like back in the early 70s, something like 1970, something like that. But I would love to see more of a first of all, the platform getting more public and more people becoming aware of what the Libertarian Party is, and starting on that ground level, city council and all that kind of stuff, and and working our way up from there, and just moving ahead, because we do have it cut out for us. And I wish there was a Libertarian president. I think it'd shake things up. The reality of that, I'm not too sure, but I'll tell you what, I'm definitely grateful for you coming on the show tonight and just explaining to people, explaining to us, and just putting that libertarian philosophy out there for people to think about, that there's something else. Because I am 100% assured that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, these professional politicians, are fucking us over left and right, both sides of the aisle.
Of course.
And it doesn't stop.
Absolutely.
And so I am definitely looking for something better. Steph, we need to run for office.
We would get like 2 votes, just you and I.
I could be a charismatic motherfucker, man. Get me in front of some people. I will be charismatic as fuck.
Think so?
If you guys want to run, I'll show you how it's done.
I'd be your vice president.
Yeah, there we go. It'll be Jake and the Fat Man, like an old TV show.
Or maybe I should be president and you should be vice president.
Yes, and massa, I can do that too.
Awesome. Now we're really making it somewhere.
All right, Daniel. Thanks for coming on. And once again, that's
Thanks for having me.
That's Berman2020.com or Berman2020 on all of the social media. Go check him out. Read. He's got a lot of good stuff on his website. You can get into all of his stance on everything specific. It's all typed out. You can see it all there. And that was Daniel Berman.
Yeah, contact.
Daniel Berman from Cancun, Mexico. That's running for president of the United States. All right, thanks, Dan. It was nice to have you on. We'll have you on again. Have a good night. Okay. All right.
Down the rabbit hole with idiots.
Well, after this I shall think nothing of falling down the stairs.